Nelson Jordan. I'm Chris Nelson. If you have not done so already, please go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube page, follow us on all of our social media pages, and listen to us wherever you get your podcasts. Talking some Monday Night Football, the Buffalo Bills at the Atlanta Falcons, and the Chicago Bears at the Washington Commanders. So Nelson, the Atlanta Falcons defeated the Buffalo Bills 24-14. No wide receiver Darnell Mooney for the Falcons. Left tackle Jake Matthews got hurt late in the second quarter and did not return. On the Bills side of things, they're without a wide receiver as well, and Curtis Samuel. Tight end Dalton Kincaid. Linebacker Matt Milano. Their other linebacker, Terrell Bernard, also got hurt late in the second quarter and did not return. They're also without defensive tackle Daquan Jones. What were your takeaways from the game?
Well, I did not have on my bingo card Atlanta was going to give Buffalo a thumping, but that's what the score was. It was a good thumping. If it wasn't for any, per se, late attempts at heroics, potentially Buffalo could have made this closer than it really was. They got up to a hot start, 21-7 by the end of the first half. We saw what essentially Bijan Robinson has been right now. I'd say he's probably the favorite, at least offensive player of the year, although I like Jonathan Taylor a little bit more. But it's insane. 19 for 170, one touchdown against that Bills defense, who has always had a problem against really good running backs. Maybe it's because they run their quarters coverage like they always do under McDermott, and that leaves them exposed. But not a good showing for Buffalo now, 2 weeks in a row that you take losses at the hands of a decent running game from New England and now Atlanta, which gave you a whooping. Tyler Algier as well had another touchdown as well. We saw what Michael Penix did. Nice game. I wouldn't say it was overly amazing, but it was a nice game overall. 20 for 32, 250 yards, one touchdown. He moved the ball around pretty well, I'd say, for his liking. Now, when we talk about Buffalo, this is, starting to become a red flag with Buffalo. I don't know what's going on with Josh Allen, but this is now the second straight game in a row that he's coughing up the ball and he's, giving the ball away to enemy hands. He had two interceptions in this game. He had a fumble as well. I mean, just not good. So I don't know what's going on with Josh. Maybe he can get out of this funk by next week, but this is 2 weeks in a row. He did have two touchdowns, like I said. One, both of them were first in the first quarter, and another one in the third quarter as well. I don't understand why they didn't run James Cook more. I get it. You gave some carries off to Josh Allen. He had six by himself, but James Cook, he had about 5.1 yards a clip, and he ran off of 17 carries for 87 yards. So that just, for me, didn't make sense considering what the secondary is for the Atlanta Falcons, especially with you're facing some of their, at least one of their all-pro corners and talented secondary, I would say. So overall, Atlanta got the dub, the 3-2, and they're flying high. Buffalo, they're stumbling now, just like the Philadelphia Eagles. 2 games in a row, they're take back-to-back losses. What's your take?
Are we calling AJ Terrell an all-pro corner? Is that where you're going with that?
Oh, he was pretty good last year, and he had a good year before that one when he got the contract.
Technically, he is all-pro if that's where you're going with that. It's just it was 4 years ago, you know. But I mean, hey, all-pro is 4 years going to second season. That's fine. I just wanted to clarify there because I'm kind of sitting here like, you know what? I guess he is all-pro, but at 4 years, a long time. I mean, hasn't quite been as good the past few years, but either way, he certainly to talk about him like he's all-pro. Yeah, the Bills scored touchdowns in their opening drive of each half, and then Josh Allen threw an interception on their final drive of each half. It's kind of an odd anomaly we saw out there, and he was without a couple of his weapons, so I think that's a big part of the struggle. It's not to
Mm,
take away from what he did wrong. That's on him for sure. But I
yeah.
think we need to give a lot of credit to the Atlanta Falcons here. I mean, they looked great. They came out in the opening drive and marched right down the field. That 1-2 punch of Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier is just tremendous. I mean, sorry to stop. That touchdown run Tyler Algier had was outstanding. Bijan Robinson had himself a game. I mean, he actually only had 40 yards on his final 10 carries after whatever he had in the first nine. It was insane because the ninth carry was that 81-yard touchdown run. And how did Cole Bishop not knock him out of bounds? What a run from Bijan Robinson. That was so
Mm-hmm.
good. It was outstanding. He broke
Mm-hmm.
that tackle on silent and went all the way. He's
Mm-hmm.
incredible, man. A lot of fun to watch. Great game as a receiver as well. I mean, he's just tough to handle. And Drake London had himself a first half.
Forgot
I
to
mean,
mention
it
that.
seemed
Yep.
like he was open on every play. I don't think he had a catch in the second half, though, so the Bills do deserve credit for that. He did draw the pass interference on the Bills in the second half. I'm completely. Christian Benford had the penalty. That led to the
Hmm.
blocked field goal, though, so it amounted to nothing for the
Okay.
Falcons in that circumstance. But what was it, 9 receptions over, or I think
No,
170
so
yards in the
I
first
see
half?
here 10
So
receptions
he did have
total,
one catch in the
158
second half.
yards
Okay,
for
one. Yeah, that
16
was tough.
total targets. That's insane.
Well, one time at the end of the first half, the Falcons' second to last drive, of the first half, excuse me, Michael Penix Jr. missed him when he was open on the sideline, and then they got the interception and came back, and the Bills blew that coverage on him, and he's running towards the end zone. It looked like a touchdown initially, but they happened to get him out of bounds at the 1 yard line. It's funny because in the touchdown catch he did have earlier, he extended I think it was to for their second touchdown to
Oh,
raise
yeah, I
the
remember
point.
that one.
He extended the ball over, and in this
Yep,
one he
over the
didn't try to
plane.
do that, which he was a full yard away. I don't know if he has enough reach to extend the ball over the plane there, but it's
Mm.
kind of interesting if he tried it again, maybe. But it's funny how that actually ran the clock out, so the Falcons couldn't even attempt a field goal and wound up coming away with nothing. It actually worked in the Bills' favor, whereas I was sitting here like Minneapolis Miracle, Stephon Diggs. That's what I
Eh,
was looking at.
eh, eh,
Obviously,
eh.
very different circumstances, but in the first half, that was in the game, playoff game, so on and
Hmm.
so forth. But yeah, I mean, look, got to give credit to those two. They were tremendous. Obviously, you just mentioned only one catch in the second half. That pass interference for that amounted to nothing for Drake London. But when you do that much damage in the first half, they have to cater coverage to you in the second half. You lose
Yeah,
your another linebacker, and that defense is going to struggle. Even though really they were much better in the second half, limiting them to just the field goal that essentially iced it
yeah,
at the
they held
end.
on pretty
But
good. Hmm.
yeah, so hey, credit to the Falcons defense. Let's give Jeff Wilbur credit, man. We have a number of times against the Vikings we did, but I mean that guy's a heck of a defensive coordinator. Just got to give him his credit for what he has that defense doing. Go ahead.
We got to give some credit too to the OC for the Atlanta Falcons. Now, granted, I think they were a little choppy the first couple of games so far. They got their get right game against the Commanders, and ever since, I mean, look, Drake London and Bijan Robinson, these guys are superstars in this league already. I mean, it's wonders what this OC has done to this offense in comparison to what previous regime did now that he's up in Pittsburgh. I mean, it's overall just complete 180 flip. Wouldn't you agree?
That they're superstars? No, I think that Bijan Robinson is very good and could elevate to that level. Drake London has yet to prove, other than the first half last night, that he is anywhere near a superstar. Maybe this season he'll show that. We'll see how the rest of the season plays out. But
Hmm.
through his this is his fifth season, right? Through his first 4 years, he has been a big disappointment on the whole. He's gotten better each year, and a lot of
Hmm.
people blame the play calling and quarterback play and so on and so forth. And I do want to touch on that to finish up, though. Michael Penix Jr. is not a great quarterback at this point in time. Maybe he gets there, but right now, watching him play, he makes some good plays, he makes some good throws, but he struggles to go
Hmm.
through his progressions, and he's an inaccurate passer, and it's frustrating to watch. He's just not there, and I don't know that he gets there. And when you've got Kirk Cousins sitting there being paid all that money on the bench, you just kind of keep thinking that every time you watch Michael Penix Jr. make the wrong read because he's not going through his progressions properly and he doesn't have good vision or he throws an inaccurate pass, it becomes a point of frustration. The Chicago Bears went to Landover, Maryland in some miserable rainy weather and beat the Washington Commanders 25-24 on a walk-off field goal. Second straight year we saw this game come down to a walk-off score from the trailing team to ultimately win the game, but this time it went the Bears' way after the Hail Mary went the way for the Commanders last year. Bears, of course, without star cornerback. I'm completely blanking on his name. What's his name?
Star quarterback. You mean star corner?
Corner, yeah.
Cornerback? I have
Jalen
no
Johnson is his
idea.
name. Jalen Johnson.
Yeah, yep, it is.
Jalen Johnson, who has yet to play this season. Their linebacker, Noah Sewell, went out in the second quarter and did not return. On the Commander's side of things, the guy on the receiving end of that Hail Mary touchdown last year, Noah Brown, did not play. And his
Yeah.
fellow wide receiver and Ohio State product, All-Pro Terry McLaurin, was out as well, in addition to running
Mm.
backs Austin Eckler and Chris Rodriguez for that Commanders offense. No Dietrich Wise Jr. at defensive end on defense. Nelson, what were your takeaways?
Rodriguez was actually active. He just never got a snap. That's just
I
a
thought so.
rebuttal.
They mentioned that before the game, and he was hurt. I thought he was active, but he didn't play, so we'll
He
just leave
didn't
it there.
play. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was a fun game. This was a fun game in the rain. Chicago literally brought the Windy City to Landover, Maryland. That's what it felt like. I'll be happy to say that I did attend the game, and it felt like it was the Windy City. The wind was swirling. You could tell that with the rain on probably on national TV. It was one of those fall, October type of games where you're going to run the ball at will, and whoever stops it's going to win the game. And ultimately, Chicago Bears and Ben Johnson, they came in and they did that. They did that against a top 10 rush against defense with the Washington Commanders, and they showed them. They showed them well. DeAndre Swift, he had 14 carries for 108 yards and a touchdown on a reception, so 2 for 67 as well.
Yeah.
I thought that offensive line for the Chicago Bears was moving the defensive line for the Commanders pretty well all game long. They were definitely sealing the edges for DeAndre Swift to keep having those pitches and run outside the tackles, which the Commanders just simply had no answer for. Caleb Williams himself, I thought he had an average game at best. There was some throws that he made with his arm. Obviously, he made some good reads with his legs, extending drives and getting those first downs. But then there was a couple of throws that he made ill-advised. Either it was a late read, he had possible two bad picks that he could have had. Thankfully Sanders still didn't catch it. Neither did Luvu. And he also had, I think, and one of the other players too on a kickoff return. There was a forced fumble, but luckily the Bears recovered that as well. So sloppy game. I mean, that was just Chicago.
Conditions.
Yeah, the
Conditions.
conditions were just bad. They also had one blocked field goal as well on a low snap that got blocked by both by Payne and Kinlaw. And on the Washington side of things, this was Jaden on a C grade at best. That first throw that he had into the end zone, I believe he was going after Jalen Lane. He completely threw a bullet pass instead of having to touch over the corner and or threw it late, which the defender
The
picked it
interception.
off. Yeah,
Oh,
in the end
yeah,
zone.
he was late on the throw. He
He
just
was
threw it out
late.
to Debo
It
Samuel.
was
That
it
should
was
have
a
been a
bad throw.
touchdown. Safety was
It was a
there, but
bad
if he
throw.
throws that ball on time and a little more inside, he could have beaten the safety and gotten the touchdown.
Yeah,
Horrible,
yeah, it was a
horrible
bad
throw.
throw.
Absolutely
It was a
horrible.
bad
It was
throw.
brutally bad. Can't have it.
He besides the three touchdowns that he had in this game, he had a wonderful throw to Moore on the back end zone. He also had another throw to Zach Ertz also coming in as well. And then he also had another throw, I believe, to another receiver. Can't think of Luke McCaffrey on a beautiful setup play on a fake screen that Cliff Kingsbury drew up. But he did have one costly fumble in the game, and it would have been literally on the snap to get the first down and ice the game. But he fumbled the snap, and he was trying to give it to Ja'Cory
Exchange.
Krosky
The
Merritt,
handoff.
but it was just horrible. And I
The
mean,
exchange
again, the
was bad.
conditions and the conditions, because
Yeah.
literally by the time that the game was ending, the rain was coming down and it was swirling. I mean, it was just all the momentum was going for Chicago at that time. And then there was also another fumble too by Bill Krosky Merritt as well earlier in the game. So sloppy game by both sides here in this game. Chicago, they won it at the very end, as you stated, on a late field goal by Jake Moody. And
Cool
this
story.
just shows that there is now a rivalry in the NFL between the first two overall quarterbacks to go off in 2024. And this is probably going to be a preview for many more games that the NFL is going to target between the Chicago Bears and the Washington Commanders going forward. Excellent game so far. What do you got on that?
Well, they've played the past few years now, right? I think they played in Chicago on a Thursday night a few years ago. It was Sam Howell and Justin Fields, so it was a little bit different. And
No,
all of the games
It was
between them have been
Carson
very
Wentz.
sloppy games.
It was Wentz. It was Carson Wentz versus
No,
Justin
that would have been the
Fields.
year before.
Oh,
They
okay,
played
I'm
the past
thinking.
4 years. Fact check that
Ye-
quickly while I'm talking. Go ahead and fact check that. Because
Sure,
I'm pretty positive I
sure.
remember a game with Sam Howell and Justin Fields on a Thursday night football, and it was a sloppy game, but I believe it was a close game, and that's been the case the past couple years they've played now in Landover. But that
Yeah,
being said, yeah, you
yeah,
mentioned it. The Commanders turned the ball over in their first two possessions, and then on their final possession, which was of course the unforced one. But the Bears made even more mistakes than the Commanders. I mean, it was a rough game to watch. We know there were some guys out for both sides, and the Bears defense struggled even more after Noah Sewell went out. But obviously, when you're missing those wide receivers and running backs for the Commanders, that's tough. And their offense played for the most part pretty well despite that. The other mistake the Commanders made that you didn't mention was that Matt Gay had a 50-yard field goal go off the left
yeah.
upright, no good. He came back in
Yeah.
the second half and made a 53-yard field goal. I mean, and they lost by a point, so that cost them the game, along with, as you
Yeah.
mentioned, the bad interception and the fumbling the exchange at the end. You can have these things happen, but look, for the Bears, I mean, they were up 13 to nothing because they got a field goal the opening drive, they got the interception,
Hmm.
and yes, we mentioned that Montez Sweat in his latest return to Landover had a roughing the passer call that gifted the Commanders 15 yards, free 15, and got them in position where that interception wound up happening on the goal line.
Uh,
They went down and got a field goal. The Bears did, and then off the Krusky Merritt fumble, they finally got the touchdown with the Caleb Williams run. So they're up 13 and nothing. And credits to the Commanders for battling back. We're
right.
used to that, cardiac Commanders. But the mistakes from the Bears, I mean, you mentioned about how Samerstow always seems to be involved in everything, good or bad. Oftentimes it seems to be bad, but he had the interception, and I guess he was as surprised as the rest of us that Caleb Williams threw the ball right to him. I don't know why Caleb Williams threw the ball to him. That wasn't the right team.
Yeah.
Apparently he got confused, but he did drop it. And then the Bears actually had a touchdown after that where Samerstow got beat by Roma Dunze, who made an incredible catch for a touchdown. But it got
Yeah.
called back for an illegal formation.
Formation.
They need to get that rule under control. It's just got implemented last year. It's past couple years we've seen
Yeah.
it. The rule is correct. They do need to make sure that they're in the correct lineup. But the way they're enforcing it is clearly very poor because that did not look like it should have been called. And if it was going to be called, they felt like they needed to have more communication on that. And if the communication was there, then that is on the Bears.
Yeah.
But it felt like a situation where the Commanders weren't playing their defense any differently because that guy was lined up slightly too far back. The left tackle that is what we're referring to. And it would have been a touchdown anyway, even if he'd been, an inch, if that, further up. So it just felt like a ridiculous call. But at the end of the day, I think the Bears were happy to come in with a field goal there instead of an interception. And I think the Commanders were relieved to be able to hold them to a field goal rather than the touchdown. So I guess we can all just move on from that one. But
Yeah.
there were a lot of little things in this game, little mistakes. And before Jaden Daniels fumbled the exchange at the end that allowed the Bears to go down and get the game-winning field goal, they had a play where Amade Zacchaeus was open, had come on a right underneath and beat the defenders. Unbelievable. It was a second and 14, and Caleb Williams put it right on him, and it bounced off of incomplete. He had a lot of room
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
run that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
The Commanders' secondary is awful. Just awful. I mean, their receivers running open all game long. You mentioned it. Caleb Williams is the reason that he should have had a monster game, but he's so inaccurate. Even when he completes passes, he still puts in a position where the receivers don't have an opportunity to catch and run for more yards because it's inaccurate. He's just an inaccurate passer.
I do want to make one remark real quick for the
Yeah, of course.
audience because there is now a lot of chatter within the Washington area. And if anybody goes back and looks at the highlights, you'll see it as clear as day. I mean, again, I was there live. I saw it. I mean, my eyes were not gonna lie. Joe Witt this is his now second year as a defensive coordinator. He was with, Dan Quinn up in Dallas, and now he's got the ultimate lead to be able to call plays. I don't get it. There multiple times, and I'm sure you saw it, Chris, it would be, I don't know, let's say second and six. Yet the secondary is backed off 7, 8, 9 yards, playing a deeper zone and just letting everybody just catch the ball right in front of them. It's becoming a scheme thing with Joe Witt. Now, is it a complaint? Sure. If the players can do better, absolutely. But, coaching is what matters in this league too. And again, audience, go check it out yourself. Go fact check me if you will. But it doesn't make sense when you are pressing, or not even press coverage on a second or third down, and you're letting literally prevent defense and letting Caleb, who we know when Caleb's not getting pressure, he can look great. But when you are blitzing him, which we did see on a couple of plays, he either had some overthrows or he threw it in a double coverage or he did become erratic and he went out of the pocket. So again, I don't know. That's just beef from me. I mean, again, everyone go see the tape if you will and just fact check me. But yeah, that's just one remark I wanted to share.
Yeah, and just some final thoughts I had. Caleb Williams did come right back to Zacchaeus after the drop on the third down and hit him for, I believe it was a 12-yard gain, so about a 4th and 2, but they were backed up, had to punt, and then obviously the Commanders felt bad for them, so they gave them the ball back anyway.
Right.
Look, they did get going, the Bears, that is, at the end of the game. I mean, the DeAndre
Mm-hmm.
Swift touchdown. We talked about the game Bijan Robinson had, the touchdown he had running down the sideline. Obviously, that was a run.
Mm-hmm.
DeAndre Swift's going down the sideline. How do you
Yeah.
not make that tackle? They missed tackle. Great play by DeAndre Swift to get away
Yeah.
from him and go into the end zone for the touchdown. But gotta
Absolutely.
make that tackle. That
The
Commanders
safety
secondary is
whiffed on that
awful.
tackle. He could have
Yeah,
been a
the
lot
Commanders
better on
secondary
that.
is terrible. It's terrible. Every game. But DeAndre Swift had an incredible game. That's the guy who was a Pro Bowler with the Eagles a couple years ago. They chose to replace him with Saquon Barkley. He gets the contract with the Bears in free agency. He really
Hmm.
struggled last year.
Hmm.
This is the guy that they were expecting to get, and what it should look like. And it's funny because before the game, and I think during as well, Troy Aikman was saying how the Bears were not going to run the ball well in this game. They were going to really struggle. It was going to be a rough night for DeAndre Swift, and this wasn't going to happen. Well, yeah, that didn't age so well because DeAndre Swift, you mentioned it. You mentioned the stats. He had himself a game as both a runner and receiver. And on that final drive when they did get the ball back, Caleb Williams was good, but DeAndre Swift, just the Commanders could not stop him. He was just ripping off big plays and
Hmm.
taking it to him to get them down to field goal range. And what a story for Jake Moody. I mean, this guy gets cut by the 49ers who took him into the third round a couple years ago, and it didn't work out with them, so they moved on from him and replaced him. And it's his first game with the Bears, and in these awful conditions. And I'm sitting there before the game, and that story is being broken down, and I'm thinking to myself, what if we find ourselves in a situation where Jake Moody kicks the game-winning walk-off field goal and it actually happened? I couldn't believe it. What a story. That was awesome. That's another thing is Troy Aikman said that Ben Johnson doesn't want to settle for the field goal here in these conditions with the rainy, windy conditions. He wants to get in the end zone. Ben Johnson settled for the field goal. Once they got in the red zone, he said, "We're in range. Just take the knee. Let's kick this thing and get out of here." And he drilled it. He was right. I do want to criticize my guy Ben Johnson for one decision he made earlier in the game in the first half. I believe it
Really?
was on the second on their fourth drive. The first time they got stopped, somewhere in with that. I believe that's when it was. They had a 4th and 1
Yeah, I know which
deep
play you're
in
talking
Washington
about.
territory.
Hmm.
Run the ball. I mean, the Commanders didn't stop the run all night. Just give the ball to DeAndre
Yeah,
Swift to get it, or even quarterback
he
sneak
got
if
too
Caleb
cute.
Williams.
He
He's a
got
big
way
guy.
too cute.
Way too cute. That's exactly what I was going to say. You took the words
He
out of
got
my
way too
mouth.
cute.
Yeah, and that was the play that Frankie Louvu broke it up, which was the all-pro linebacker last year, Frankie Louvu. He's tremendous, and he had himself a game. He made a lot of big plays in
Yeah,
that game.
Lubu. Yeah.
Yeah, no question. He had himself a big game last night. But yeah, I mean that one was frustrating. So there's just a lot of little things for these teams. The Bears just made so many mistakes. Obviously, we touched on the ones the Commanders made. Just felt like the Bears made more. In the injuries for both sides, probably more significant for the Commanders with the wide receivers, especially Terry McLaurin, of course, the All-Pro. But at the end of the day, that is a big time win for the Bears to go on the road
Right.
and get that win against a team that we expect to be very good, and of course was last year, and a little bit of a revenge factor after what happened last year to be able to
Yeah.
go in there and get it done. So you have to give them the credit for that. And we'll say one more thing about Troy Aikman. Troy Aikman, I've been saying this for many years, and Nelson, you know this. Can you stop every single time there's a drop pass or a missed throw or something like that saying he'd still be running if he'd caught that ball or if that pass had been completed? He had nowhere, tons of green grass from him. Troy Aikman, not everybody's Michael Irvin. Every single play is not going to be a touchdown just because the pass isn't complete. It's exhausting. He does it. I'm telling you, he probably does it more games than he doesn't. It's remarkable how often I hear it. You've heard me say this many times through the years. I
No,
say
I
it to
mean,
everybody, but
no, I mean, I
sorry,
think,
Troy
I
Aikman,
think
Hall of Fame quarterback, all-time great, but you had a rough broadcast last night, so go ahead,
I mean,
Nelson.
everyone can say that from every POV. I mean, I was at the game, like I was saying, and that's such a Corey Krosky merit. I'm sure you probably saw it too. There was so many times where literally we thought that there was a hole open, and the Bears just closed it for a split second. It's like this. It's the same concept. I mean, it's the speed of the NFL, how it is today, how it's much faster than what it was a decade ago, and even more than a decade. But my last props to, again, Ben Johnson. I think he's slowly but surely getting this offense more steady and more upright. And to tell you the truth, I mean, he had a very well balanced attack, throwing those screen passes when the Commanders were not even seeing that coming. I mean, were perfect timing. And we saw DeAndre Swift just exposed and outrun the linebackers in the secondary. So good win by the Bears, as you stated. And now the whole
Tough loss
NFC
for the
North.
Commanders.
Yeah, well, I was gonna get to that, but yeah, the NFC North now, everyone's above 500. They're 3-2. They're right behind the Vikings, and literally one game behind the right now division leading Green Bay Packers. And as far as the Commanders, this was a perfect opportunity for them to have won this game, been tied for first place with Philly, but now you take a step back, and now you got the Dallas Cowboys next week on America's Game of the Week on Fox, and that game is going to be crucial for both teams. I mean, you just can't dig yourself a hole like this, and we'll see how Jaden and company react. Hopefully, Terry McLaurin is back too by that game, as you stated, because we know what that offense is like with Terry McLaurin on the field, and we kind of seen that now for how many weeks. Without him, that offense just shrinks. So, anyways, anything
Yeah,
else?
great. Great win for the Bears. Tough loss for the Commanders. Did you get the fact check on
Yes, I
recent
did.
Bears
So to
Commanders
confirm,
games?
yeah, they faced off the last couple of years since 2023. Sam Howell was in one of those games. That is correct.
Okay, that was the Thursday night game. Who won that game?
Yes, that was correct. Chicago Bears,
What was the score?
40-20.
So it was not a close game. It was a blowout. The Bears put a beat down on them.
Yeah, it was a
Okay.
blowout.
Yeah, that was a sloppy game. Okay, so the past 3 years they've played, the Bears have won two of those. The past two both played in Landover, and the Bears took one of those. And the other one,
Yeah.
Stevenson's forever going to regret that one. But we're all grateful it happened because Noah Brown was an awesome play. I'm sorry you didn't get to play against them again last night. We all wanted to see it. Same with Terry McLaurin and all these guys who were out. We
Right.
hope them the best in their health going forward. We know a couple of those guys, Austin Eckler and Dietrich Wise Jr., season-ending injuries. We hope them the best in the recovery. Look forward to seeing them back in the field next season, we hope. But that's all we have for this guy. Subscribe
Yes, sir.
to that YouTube page. Follow those social media pages. For Nelson Jordan, I am Chris Nelson. This has been The First and Final Word.